Don't forget to like the video, share your thoughts in the comments section, and subscribe to the channel to stay updated with our latest stories.
At 45, Clara's life looked pristine from the outside. An elegant home with ivy crawling up brick walls, a tidy schedule wrapped in silk routines, and a career polished to the gleam of respectability. But beneath the surface, something fragile stirred. Her mornings were quiet, her evenings predictable. Yet a hollow rhythm throbbed beneath it all. A sense that she had mastered the art of appearing content without ever truly feeling it. There was no chaos, no scandal, no drama. And somehow, that was the problem. In the stillness of her sun-drenched kitchen, sipping her usual dark roast, she began to notice how muted everything felt. Laughter was softer. Smiles didn't quite reach her eyes, and even the warmth of a summer breeze brought more melancholy than peace. It was as if life had shrunk to fit the mold she'd built for herself, and she was slowly suffocating inside its perfection. Clara didn't know what she was missing, only that something had quietly vanished along the way. And just as she started to wonder if this quiet despair was her new normal, a single knock at the door cracked through her days, sending ripples through the carefully still waters of her life, and she would never be the same again. The knock didn't sound like much at first, just a soft rap against the wood, tentative, almost unsure. But Clara felt it in her spine. It wasn't the mailman or a delivery. No, this knock was different. It hesitated. It lingered. It was the kind of knock that carried weight. She rose slowly from the kitchen table, the silence of the house amplifying the sound of her own breath. As she opened the door, her world tilted slightly. There stood Maya, her neighbor of 5 years. Always the picture of grace and composure, now looking like a woman unraveling. Her blouse was rumpled, her expression distant, and in her trembling hands she clutched a small, unmarked envelope as if it might burn her. "Hey," Maya said, her voice fragile, the edges of it fraying with something unsaid. I know this is out of the blue, but I didn't know who else to come to." Clara blinked, alarmed not by the words, but by the panic buried beneath them. Maya, always poised, always in control, now looked like someone standing at the edge of a precipice. "Can I come in?" she asked, eyes darting down the hallway as if afraid someone might see her. Clara stepped aside wordlessly, her heart thrumming like a drum. The envelope passed between them like a secret too heavy to carry alone. Whatever this was, it wasn't small. It wasn't casual. Something had cracked open in Maya, and Clara could already feel the splinters reaching toward her, sharp and undeniable. Clara turned the envelope over in her hands, its weight disproportionate to its size. There was no name, no seal, no return address, just a plain cream-colored slip of paper folded neatly inside. But Maya's silence spoke louder than any label. Clara glanced at her neighbor, who now sat stiffly at the edge of a kitchen chair, her eyes downcast, her hands clenched so tightly her knuckles had turned white. The tension in the room thickened, each second stretching like taffy, sticky with unease. With a careful breath, Clara unfolded the note. The message was short, only a sentence scrawled in rushed, almost desperate handwriting. "I need your help. You're the only one who can understand. Please don't tell anyone." Clara's pulse quickened. She read it again and again, as if clarity might reveal itself with repetition. When she finally looked up, Maya was watching her, not with fear but with a deep, vulnerable plea. Her eyes, usually so confident, shimmered with restrained panic. Clara felt her throat tighten. This wasn't just a passing confession or some harmless anecdote shared over wine. This was a plea for sanctuary. Something had broken inside Maya, and she had brought the pieces here. Clara suddenly felt both honored and terrified. Why her? What did Maya think she could understand? And more urgently, what secret was so unbearable that it had to be hidden in ink and handed over like a burden too heavy for one woman to carry alone? Something was beginning, and it would not be easily undone. Maya sat across from Clara like a woman stitched together with trembling thread, present but barely holding. Her polished facade, the effortless grace, the warm smile she wore like armor, had fallen away. What remained was someone raw, almost unrecognizable. Clara had always seen Maya as composed, even enviable, the kind of woman who floated through life untouched by the messiness of emotion. But now, her voice shook with each word, her eyes darted nervously. and her fingers played an anxious rhythm on the table's edge. "I haven't told anyone. Not even David," she whispered, her voice so low Clara had to lean in to catch it. The confession landed like a thunderclap in the quiet kitchen. Maya wasn't just here to talk, she was here to bleed. There was a weight to her presence, a pressure in the air that made Clara's skin prickle. This wasn't small. This wasn't gossip or regret. It was a fracture long hidden finally surfacing. Clara felt herself shift inside, part of her wanting to pull away, to escape the intensity. But another part, the deeper part, leaned in, sensing the gravity of this moment. "Whatever it is, I'm listening," she said, though her voice barely felt like her own. Maya gave a small nod, her eyes glistening. "Thank you," she murmured. "I've been pretending for so long, I almost forgot what it felt like to be real." And in that instant, Clara realized that everything she thought she knew about her neighbor, about herself, was about to be rewritten. Clara watched Maya closely, sensing the storm still trapped behind her neighbor's eyes. The words Maya had spoken clung to the air like smoke. "I've been pretending for so long." And yet, Clara knew they were only the surface of something deeper. Maya kept pausing, swallowing her thoughts, as if afraid that speaking them out loud would give them too much power. There was a silence between them now, not the comfortable kind, but something dense and waiting. Clara could feel it pressing in from all sides. Maya's gaze dropped to her lap, fingers twisting the hem of her sleeve. She seemed ready to say more, but something held her back. And that hesitation, that breath just before the plunge, rattled Clara more than any words could. It was a silence that screamed. Clara didn't push. She sat still, sensing that Maya wasn't just battling the memory of her past, but the terror of what Clara might think once the truth came out. She wanted to be understood, not pitted, believed, not fixed. And Clara, despite the unease rising in her chest, found herself leaning into that vulnerability. Her heartbeat quickened, not out of fear, but from the uncanny certainty that something life-altering was about to be spoken. She had no idea what Maya was about to reveal, but she knew instinctively that it would change the way she saw not just her neighbor but herself. It wasn't just Maya's secret that lingered in the silence. It was the mirror it might hold up to Clara's own quiet, hidden ache. Maya's voice, when it finally broke the silence, was barely more than a whisper, thin, uncertain, but carried by a kind of desperate courage. "Before David, before this life." She paused, her eyes distant as though watching ghosts cross the room. "I was with someone else. Someone who wasn't safe." The words dropped like stones into the stillness, sending quiet shockwaves through Clara's chest. Maya didn't need to elaborate for the gravity to land. The way her shoulders tensed, the way her hands clenched as if bracing for impact. Clara saw the truth in her body long before it unfolded in language. "He made me feel alive, special. At first," Maya continued, her lips barely moving, "but he twisted things, controlled me, until I didn't recognize myself anymore." She blinked back tears. "I thought I left it all behind when I met David. I thought I buried it, but it never really left." Clara's heart pounded in her ribs. She imagined the version of Maya the world knew, strong, graceful, unshakable, and now saw the cost of that illusion. This wasn't some broken romance or regretful mistake. This was trauma, deep and enduring. Clara could feel it settling around them like a storm cloud, the air charged and fragile. And still, Maya pressed on. "I've lived every day since then like it never happened. But it did. And I can't pretend anymore." The room held its breath. Clara did too, because in Maya's unraveling, she could feel her own tightly held seams starting to fray. Clara sat frozen, her hands curled around a cooling mug of tea she hadn't touched in minutes. Maya's voice wavered but didn't break as she spoke of the years she had spent running, from memories, from pain, from the version of herself that had survived something cruel and corrosive. "It never went away," Maya said, her gaze fixed on a spot just past Clara's shoulder. "Even in the quiet, it followed me. I'd hear his voice in the way David raised an eyebrow. I'd flinch at shadows that weren't even there." Her laugh was hollow, bitter. "I told myself I was free, but I built my own prison, one with nicer curtains." Clara felt a chill ripple through her. Not from fear, but recognition. Maya wasn't just talking about a past lover. She was talking about the scars no one could see, the kind that buried themselves deep beneath smiles and routines. And every time I acted like I was fine, it just made it worse, Maya added. I started losing pieces of myself. I couldn't tell where the lie ended and I began. Her eyes glistened, but no tears fell. I've forgotten what it feels like to just be me. Clara's heart ached with the weight of that truth. The woman in front of her wasn't asking for sympathy, she was begging for release. For someone to finally say, "Yes, I see you. And you're still here." And Clara, sitting in that quiet kitchen filled with shadows, knew she couldn't let Maya face the darkness alone. Clara stared at Maya, her mind a whirlpool of questions and quiet dread. The room hadn't changed, but something in the air had shifted, thicker, heavier, like a storm pressing against the windows. Maya had just handed her a truth so raw, so unvarnished, that it felt like holding a fragile secret too sacred to name. And with it came a quiet panic. What if David found out? What if this past, so buried, so volatile, rose again and swallowed them both? Clara wasn't sure what terrified her more. The fear in Maya's voice, or the feeling blooming in her own chest, an anxious thrum, as if she too had stepped into something irreversible. Maya looked at her with wide, uncertain eyes, as though bracing for judgment or rejection. "I didn't mean to drag you into this," she whispered. I didn't know where else to go." Clara swallowed hard. Her mouth was dry. She wanted to say something comforting, something certain, but the truth was she felt anything but steady. This wasn't just a neighborly favor. Maya's confession had pierced something in Clara, calling up her own long-buried fears, the mistakes she had hidden, the emotions she had muted to maintain her perfectly ordered world. Now, with Maya sitting across from her, exposed and vulnerable, Clara felt the thin line between their lives dissolving. She wasn't just holding Maya's secret, she was staring into the mirror of her own restraint. And for the first time in years, Clara wasn't sure who she'd see when the reflection spoke back. The storm arrived just after midnight, wind thrashing against the windows, rain tapping a frantic rhythm on the roof. Clara sat upright in bed, restless, her thoughts a blur of Maya's confessions and the weight they'd left behind. The knock came again, sharp, urgent. She hurried to the door and found Maya on the porch, soaked through, her arms wrapped tightly around herself like armor. Her eyes were wild, searching. "I can't do this anymore," she said, breathless. "I can't keep pretending I'm okay." Clara stepped aside without a word, and Maya moved inside like a woman being hunted by her own memories. The storm outside was nothing compared to the one unraveling in her chest. She paced the living room, trembling, her words tumbling out between breaths. "I want to run. I want to leave it all behind. David, this house, the life I've built, like a lie on top of more lies. I feel like I'm going to explode if I stay another day." Her voice cracked, raw and alive. Clara watched, heart racing. This wasn't just fear, it was rebellion, a desperate longing to breathe again. And buried in Maya's panic was something electric, something fierce. Clara had never seen her like this. On the edge of something terrifying, yes, but also something liberating. "Then go," Clara whispered, stepping closer. "Not to escape, but to find yourself again." Maya met her eyes, soaked lashes blinking, and for the first time, Clara saw not just the broken woman, but the fire still burning beneath the ruin. In the days that followed Maya's midnight breakdown, Clara found herself drifting through her own routines like a ghost. She moved through meetings, meals, and errands with the eerie sensation that she was merely playing a role, one she hadn't questioned until now. Maya's unraveling had struck a nerve far deeper than Clara expected. It was like someone had knocked loose a beam in the foundation of her perfectly composed life. She began to wonder, when was the last time she felt truly alive? When was the last time she wasn't just functioning, but feeling? Maya's words echoed through her mind. "I built my own prison." And Clara began to see her own gilded cage. It wasn't abuse or trauma, not in the way Maya had endured, but it was a slow erosion of self, of passion, of joy. Somewhere along the way, she had stopped asking questions, stopped reaching beyond the boundaries she'd drawn around herself. As she stood at the sink one morning, sunlight glinting off her wedding ring, a strange ache bloomed in her chest. Had she been surviving, not living, all this time? Maya's storm had stirred up more than just memories. It had unearthed Clara's buried restlessness, and now she couldn't put it back. Watching Maya begin to reclaim her life had awakened something fierce, something long silenced within her. It whispered not of recklessness but of possibility. Clara didn't know where it would lead, but for the first time in years, she was starting to wonder who she might become if she let herself change. Then one morning, Clara awoke to silence, not the ordinary kind, but an absence that felt deliberate. No text, no knock, no shadow crossing the fence between their houses. Maya was gone. Not missing, just gone. She had left a short note on Clara's porch, weighted down with a river stone. I need to go, to breathe, to find out who I am without all the noise. Thank you for everything. The handwriting was steady, but Clara could feel the quake beneath the words. A restless ache spread through her chest. The house next door, once a familiar backdrop of routine, now pulsed with absence. Clara stood at the window that faced Maya's yard and felt the unsettling quiet of departure. No sound of the gate creaking.
No faint laughter.
Just space. But in that space, something had shifted. Maya wasn't running, she was reaching. For clarity. For herself. And Clara couldn't help but feel that something inside her had left too. Over the following days, Clara caught herself replaying moments. Maya's breakdown, her trembling hands, the fierce resolve in her voice. Each memory carried weight but also a kind of promise. Maya was out there somewhere, carving out a life that was finally hers. And Clara, for all her worry, felt something else too. Envy. Hope. A spark. Maya's absence wasn't just a loss. It was an invitation. To reflect. To unearth. To wonder what still remained inside the life Clara had built so carefully, and whether she too might one day walk into the unknown not with fear, but with purpose. 3 weeks later. The phone rang just after dusk. Clara was on the porch, wrapped in a cardigan, watching the last amber light slip below the rooftops. Maya's name flashed on the screen, and Clara's heart skipped. Her voice on the other end was calm, so calm it startled her. I'm back, Maya said, and there was something new nestled in her tone. Stillness, clarity, maybe even peace. And I've made a decision. I'm moving out. The words were quiet, but they carried the weight of something monumental. I found a little place, she continued, laughing softly. Nothing fancy, but it's mine. Clara pressed the phone tighter to her ear, tears rising without warning. Maya spoke with the resolve of someone who had stood at the edge of herself and chosen to leap. I'm not running anymore, she said. I'm stepping forward. When they hung up, Clara sat in stunned silence, the phone still warm in her hand. She felt an overwhelming pride. Not just for Maya, but for the courage it took to shed a lifetime of roles and begin again. Days later, Maya came to say goodbye, suitcase in hand and eyes full of light. They embraced, holding on to something wordless between them, gratitude, transformation, quiet solidarity. As Maya walked down the street toward her future, Clara stayed on the porch, the sky deepening above her. A chapter had closed, but in the silence that followed, Clara didn't feel loss. She felt a door cracking open within herself, whispering, "You're next." In today's world, it's easy to hide behind curated routines, filtered smiles, and the illusion of having it all together. But like Maya, many of us carry silent wounds, buried beneath expectations and fear of judgment. Her story reminds us that healing begins with honesty, with allowing ourselves to confront what hurts and finding the courage to step into the unknown. Don't wait for breakdowns to bring clarity. Ask yourself now, am I truly living or just surviving? You deserve a life that reflects who you are, not just what the world expects. Start small. Speak your truth. And remember, you're not alone.